Let's put all this into perspective. Kranthi Bathini joins us now. I also have my other guests here with me right now. But first up to you, Kranthi. I want to understand, we have seen, market respond favorably and unfavorably given news events, news triggers. But we were expecting potentially that perhaps, the day the India-US trade deal gets signed, markets are going to breach their lifetime high. I understand that markets are still recovering from budget day cuts, but do you expect the momentum to continue from here on?
Yeah, Kartik, it's a big day for the markets. It's a sentiment booster to the market. Last few days, the market sentiment has been weak. In fact, we went to the range of below 25,000 level, which created a bear hug on the market. But overnight, the booster to the Indian markets is in the form of trade deal. Definitely market received in a positive way. And what we are going to derive from this trade deal is definitely it's a positive indication to the foreign portfolio investors who have been waiting and who are exiting from the Indian market, and the long only funds have been sitting on sideways. So this deal definitely is a positive indication for the foreign portfolio investors. And apart from the deal, if we get into the details, and the devil is in details always. And by and large, prima facie at this point of time, the stocks which have a more exposure towards US markets are concerned, like the sectors like textile, gems and jewelries, and aqua. These are all the sectors are today morning they received a positive response, and many of these stocks are skyrocketing this morning. By and large, it's a positive indication to the market, and Nifty could able to touch in the pre-opening. It went above all-time high level. It touched 26,300 level. It touched in the pre-opening above 26,300 level. We can see some kind of a adjustments. That's also good for the market in the medium to short term. The pendulum has been moving extreme exuberance to extreme pessimism. Yeah. Today, the pendulum is moving towards the extreme exuberance.
All right. I want to understand from you what this means even for crude oil prices, crude oil imports into India, and of course the impact on refiners like Reliance Industries. Given the statement which has come from the US president, of course we don't have a clarification or a confirmation from the Indian side just as yet that India has completely agreed to stop buying Russian oil. India is going to buy more American oil, and India will also potentially buy oil from Venezuela. Overall, how do you see the oil market globally as well as the impact on India?
By and large, given the kind of the current geopolitical issues are concerned, oil has been stable. As long as crude oil prices are below $60, around $70, it's a favorable condition for Indian economy is concerned. Now, coming back to your question, as I mentioned, the devil is in details. How this is going to progress in the next couple of months, that is extremely crucial. By and large, buying Venezuelan oil is positive, also positive indicator for Indian economy. The reason is the NIMS, the petrochemicals and also refining margins are a higher note from the Venezuelan oil, but there would be a differentiation of the pricing, but it can be offset with the kind of a refining margins for the Indian refineries are concerned. It's a positive indication, but how the transformation and the shift from the Russian oil from Russian oil to Venezuelan oil is going to take place. That is a transformation that's going to take place over a period of time. We need to get into details, and that would take place. Sure. Going ahead.
All right. So no timeline as yet. Stay with us, Kranthi. I want to continue for just a moment, Shri, with you now on how this story is developing geopolitically. Because we've seen Trump's adventurism, if we can call it, both in South America as well as going all the way up to Greenland. Do you think, given his midterm elections in November, pressure on approval ratings, has it been more in Trump's interest to go ahead and quickly announce that trade deal? Or do you think there was enough and more pressure on India, and India has also potentially given in to some of Trump's demands?
Definitely, Kartik, there is pressure on President Trump. I'll come to the midterm elections, but also there is the US Supreme Court, which still has held back on its rulings How long it holds the ruling, we don't know. But that's another source of pressure. But the real pressure, of course, is from the American consumers, the voters, who are not happy with a lot of the things that are happening in the economy. We haven't yet seen a significant transmission of the tariffs into consumers, but many economists are of the opinion that as the production and as the supplies and everything stabilize, we will see the transmission eventually happening. There was a recent study by a European think tank stating that the transmission should be happening very shortly now. And if that happens to coincide with the midterm elections, then that will be a source of problem because Republicans, of course, don't want to lose control of Congress. If they do, then it becomes very difficult for President Trump to push through his agenda. And he does have a sweeping agenda for America. So I think it's very important for President Trump to make sure that the disaffection that is there right now among the people in the US it doesn't snowball into a situation where it affects the party's fortunes in Congress. So that's very important. Now, also, we have the issue not just of Greenland, which has put some distance between their European allies and the US, but also there's an Iran situation which could potentially be developing. So given all these multiple fronts which President Trump has opened in the interest of the US, I think he needs an ally like India to be on his side, absolutely, because India is probably the best, the most stable ally that US can hope for in this part of the world. And that was the case until the President Trump suddenly decided that, India needs to be penalized for buying Russian oil, apart from the other tariff that he put. But even then, they had spared almost half of India's exports, Kartik. With this, I'm happy that even, you were asking Srinath about the pre-Liberation Day rates, but I don't think there's any going back to that, honestly, Kartik. So we should be happy that it's now down to 18% because that's still manageable for our exporters. While developing other markets will happen, it is a solution. US is the largest consumer of almost everything around the world. So there is no reason why we should lose the US market. And US as a country, I mean, this relationship needs to be nurtured and built, especially given what's happening geopolitically. So I think President Trump understands that very well. And the concession that the US will make will reflect that understanding of the importance of India as an ally, Kartik.
All right. I will come back to Ambassador Jayan Das Gupta before I come to Kranthi once again. But Ambassador Das Gupta, India had a trade surplus with the United States, and that is something that had irked US President Donald Trump, referred to multiple times, including, those Liberation Day on the 2nd of April, where he had said that India has a 56% tariff on American exports. But overall, this trade surplus that India enjoyed with the US, is that now likely to come under pressure with, at least if, again, on face value, if we were to believe that India is going to buy $500 billion worth of American goods over time? We don't know what that timeline is, but is India's trade surplus with the US going to be under pressure? And overall, what would that mean for India's current account deficit?
From what I can perceive, India will be buying more US oil and gas. And of course, it would be perhaps at the cost of Russia. So we have a huge trade deficit vis-a-vis Russia. That will come down. And there would be a reduction in the trade surplus that we have vis-a-vis the US. As far as technology is concerned, Indian companies have already been buying US technology where the US is willing to sell technology, because that is a major problem. Technology transfer and co-production, for instance, is a major problem that Indian industry is facing. So I don't see a government commitment to buy technology, because whenever this issue has been raised in international fora like the WTO, the US has been saying that, well, it is between two companies. Why should the government get into this? So I don't see any, marked change or radical change in the situation vis-a-vis technology, acquisition of technology, buying of technology, etc., changing this. In any case, when the technology transfer takes place, it doesn't get reflected in the merchandise goods trade. Right. It gets reflected in the royalty payments an IPR, column.
Right.
So that is not going to reduce this trade deficit which the US is facing vis-a-vis merchandise goods.
Okay.
So let us be clear on that.
Okay. Sure. Kranthi Bathini, you did mention FIIs, FPIs. We didn't really delve deeper into it. But yeah, the FII exodus that we saw pretty much all of 2025, ever since US President Donald Trump on 20th Jan moved into the Oval Office for the second time. A, is that going to be arrested now? And B, are we going to see a reverse of trend in 2026? Because with this trade deal, with the fact that India will continue to be on good terms with the US as far as at least India's trade is concerned, overall, a good time for FIIs to relook at India, park some of their capital here, especially given that US bonds are also under pressure at this moment.
Yes, Kartik, absolutely. There was the friction between India and US in the last 3-4 months has created the FIIs some kind of a skittishness in the medium to short term. And they have been sitting on sideways. Even the long only FIIs who have been building their portfolios and who are quite bullish about Indian markets, given the kind of growth projection we have on a longer term basis. But the main worry is for the FIIs in the medium to short term is the kind of bilateral relationship that has become very much fragile in the medium to short term. That has made majority of the FIIs for the month of Jan itself, FIIs have withdrawn for a tune of around 50,000 crores from Indian markets. Now these kind of indications, the strengthening of the bilateral relationship and trade sends a positive indication for all the FII fraternity across the globe. Normally, if the relationship with the US is going at a turbulent time, it is natural for anyone, any fund manager sitting in US or any part of the world, allocating funds towards that particular market is not an encouraging situation. That was the reason foreign portfolio investors have been sitting on sideways, and some other hot money that came into the Indian markets post COVID that has been in a exiting phase. For the year only, we witnessed FIIs selling for more than a tune of around 2 lakh crores for Indian market. That clearly evident on the rupee, how the way the rupee went to all-time low. So now the trade deal, definitely it sent a strong positive signal for the FIIs. Now here onwards, the growth and the numbers, stock prices are slaves to earnings. Now the earning trajectory will lead the FIIs and attract the capital towards Indian markets.
All right. Shri, just take this forward from here because, Kranthi also mentioned the INR value, and we've seen how devalued the Indian rupee has been, even at a time when the US dollar index was not showing, any resilience or any strength as far as the greenback is concerned. So overall, with this with the contours yet to emerge, but a sentimental sort of go ahead on the trade agreement, where does the Indian rupee move from here? Are we going to see at least some respite to those 92 levels and see the rupee appreciate from here on?
Absolutely, Kartik. I do expect the rupee to gain a bit. I don't think it'll go back to the old levels that we had, for example, 3 years ago, the rates it was, even maybe not even go to 80. But I do see two things will happen. One, the arrest, I think, will stop. And second, some recovery should happen, the rupee, especially as the inflows pick up, the dollar inflows pick up, whether from FIIs or from exporters, right? So that's most important. Okay. Secondly, we also will start seeing investment coming from Europe because of the FTA that we just signed. So that is another factor which will, help lift the sentiment, not just in the stock market, but also around the currency. So I think this is a very significant breakthrough we've achieved. And I see things improving not only for the stock market, but also for the currency going forward, Kartik.